Get curious about your partner rather than critical. Ask yourself, why would they act like this? What need is it fulfilling for them to behave this way? And get curious, not judgmental and not critical and not trying to find fault with them, but instead look for ways to understand what's going on with them.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all three of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today. And this guest in particular, probably 80%, if not 95% of the episodes usually say podmatch.com at this point. But hey, this is different. This is actually from Podfest 2023 this year when I went down to Florida and gave one of the best speeches of my freaking life. And then it was the gratitude brunch. And then I decided to chill. And good thing I did, because today's author, she's kind of reminds me a bit of one of my favorite people on earth, Kathy O'Shine, with one of the brightest smiles in the room and with a personality as sweet as pie, because today's guest mirrors both of those wonderful qualities, because she is a relationship expert, y'all, as well as a relationship coach. And she's not your everyday coach. You're going to find out why later, because she's also a best-selling author, a master certified trainer in NLP, as well as certified in timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and she's also trained through ICF, the International Coaching Federation, and she knows some Reiki, and she's on level 2. So let's give it up for Miss AMH herself, the angelic, marvelous, and heavily the one and only Angeline M. Hart. How you doing today, Angeline?
Well, that was quite the introduction. I may have to record that and keep it and play it for myself.
Yeah, usually the best part of the show.
I'm doing great. Really looking forward to the show today.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed, that's right indeed. And looking forward to diving into it, because you're quite the expert. Because I had the conversation with you at the wonderful breakfast table, aka brunch table. I'm like, man, this lady has a whole bunch of knowledge, and like it's like you probably didn't get it overnight, and folks are probably wondering, man, Dom usually brags about folks not having stuff overnight. Like, how the heck did they get there? So how'd you get to where you are today, Angeline, with all the wisdom you have?
Well, it started with my mother, which is probably true for most everybody, but my mother is a very, very unusual person. I mean, she's passed on, but she had 7 kids, she and my dad, in the first 7 years of their marriage. So she learned a lot right there. Then she got a teaching certificate and taught public school for 17 years. And then she kept on going to school and became a doctor of psychology. And she has the kind of personality that when she's learning, it wasn't just that she'd go off to school and learn something and we might know the title of what it was. No, she involved all of us kids in the learning that she was having about psychology. So in our family, at the dinner table, we didn't talk about politics or money. We talked about things like, you know what, you broke trust with me today when you did such and such. And so I was raised with psychological principles. And when I started dating, my girlfriends would come to me and ask for relationship guidance. What should I do about this guy? How am I going to handle this? And I just fell into coaching as the way I was raised. It was the natural thing to do. And some 40 years later, found out, oh my goodness, that could be a career. I've been doing it all my life since I was 16, and I went to a big conference, and there's over 1,000 people in the room, and they were all coaches, for goodness sakes. I'm like, what is this all about? And then I had a first marriage, 20 years, didn't work out, learned a lot there. Single mom with 3 kids for 4 years, learned a lot there. And then met my now husband of 30 years, and we are blissfully, juicily happy. Learned a lot there. And then we went in for a lot of that training that you mentioned at the top of the hour. So I've got thousands of hours of training and experience. I am literally a master certified relationship coach.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. And she's like a black belt martial artist with different disciplines, indeed. Because it was actually interesting hearing you explain timeline therapy. Because to be honest, I can't think of any other guest who's been on the show who's actually certified in timeline therapy. So, what does that entail, and what led you to discover that of all the therapies to add to your arsenal?
Okay, so timeline therapy is usually connected with NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is about how the brain works and understanding how the brain works. And one of the things that we know is that our memories, and every bit of them, the things you smelled, the things you heard, the things you felt, everything is stored. And it's stored in a way that's organized. It's stored on a timeline. And if I were to ask you, I mean, I'll just ask you, and you can be the representative for the whole audience. If I were to ask you to point away from your body toward what direction is your past, which direction would you point?
Probably behind me.
Okay, so your past for you is behind you. Some other people might point to the right or to the left, or even up or down, different directions. And if I were to ask you to point away from your body, which direction is your future? Which direction would you point?
Definitely forward.
Okay. Okay. And that is the most common. And that's the way that I tend to view my past and my future also. But different people have different perceptions of where their past and their future is. Now, can you imagine a continuous line from your past behind you, going past you and going forward out in front of you? Can you envision that line?
Oh, yes, ma'am, I can.
Okay, that's a timeline. And what we can do with that timeline, literally, because I work a lot with trauma, because trauma is what informs us of so many things about how we're going to perceive what's happening around us. And so in trauma, we go on your timeline, we use a deep relaxation, which is kind of hypnotherapy. And we use that to get you to relax so we can go to your unconscious mind and go to your past. And we'll go back to whatever memory that was that, and you may not consciously even remember it, but whatever it is that's triggering the trauma from your past, we go back to that on your timeline. We release the negative thoughts and emotions and limiting beliefs about yourself that you pick up and carry. We create these automatically. We don't do it deliberately or consciously. It's just automatic. And we release that. Now you're free from that, and you no longer get triggered by that memory, that trauma from the past. This, obvious use for it would be PTSD with military and soldiers. But you also have a lot of use for children who were abused when they were young. And they, thought mommy and daddy were right in doing what they were supposed to do. And children believe that about their parents. And then they carry this trauma of feeling like, apparently I wasn't good enough. That's why daddy had to beat me. And so we go back to those memories. We do not make you relive them. Some kinds of therapy these days make you literally go through over and over and over again. It's a desensitization process. They make you relive it, which can re-traumatize you. We do not do that. And we go back and release the negative thoughts, the negative emotions, because that's how we carry things in our body, is in thoughts and emotions. We carry it electrically, we carry it chemically. We are energetic beings. That's what we are. We release that. It doesn't mean you forget that it happened, but it no longer holds the energy, the the pain, the negativity, the limiting thoughts that you have yourself, that's all gone. You can remember back, and in some cases, we can even forgive the people who did abuse to us, who did harmful things. And of course, when we're able to forgive, the person that gets the greatest healing out of that is ourselves. And so to be able to release all the trauma is immensely helpful to allow you to be free to move forward in your life.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. The good old timeline therapy, especially the powerful visual, indeed. It's like, yep, it's like this magical line here. Certain indeed, certain indeed, focusing on the future. Certain indeed, dealing with the past, but not envisioning the whole thing and re-traumatizing yourself and waking up the next day with red hair for some strange reason, or even green hair.
Well, and people, you use the word magic, and people often say it feels magical. How could you release that so fast, so easily? Well, actually, traumas happen to us in the blink of an eye. And so we can actually release what we're carrying from it the same way. It's quick and it's easy. It's not painful. It's not traumatizing. Like, it doesn't take forever like traditional therapy. Put every one of us kids through psychotherapy. I had 2 years of it. It's not long and slow like that. It's quick and easy. It works amazingly fast.
Sweet. And how does that play a role with your relationship coaching?
Okay, so you probably already know this, and most of your audience knows this too. We are all carrying loads of baggage, lots of baggage, especially if your audience, you said, is mostly between the ages of 30 and maybe 65. So by the time you're 30, most people, many people, have had one or two or more painful relationships. Maybe might have been with their parents, might be with siblings, but oftentimes it's with an intimate partner. And we go into an intimate relationship, a romantic relationship, with our heart right there on our sleeve. We are wanting to find that love that we are literally hardwired to find. We are hardwired to bond. So we go looking for that, and with our heart open, and trying to find and hoping and believing this is going to be the one. Yay, yay, yay. And then here comes all that baggage, all that trauma, all that stuff that we have left over from the past that we've been trying to get away from. And it's messing right there in the middle of our fresh, brand new, hopeful relationship. And we find sometimes, actually fairly often, people get into patterns and they repeat. You hear about a woman, she marries some guy and she's all excited, hoping everything's going to work. And I work with mostly women. So for all the men out there that are listening, this happens to men too. But you get into a relationship and you're thinking everything's going to work out just fine. And then you realize, oh my goodness, this person is alcoholic, or this person is deeply narcissistic, or this person is whatever, they have some real problem. So you get out of that. You say, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to ever do that again. You get into the next relationship. Funny thing. Same person, different suit. Because we have pathways in our brain, neural pathways. This is what neuro-linguistic programming is about. We have these neural pathways. And unfortunately, our unconscious mind believes that the way to keep us safe is to go with what's familiar. And so we will pick up unconsciously familiar energy and go back and find another person with very similar pattern energy. And you keep repeating it and saying, I don't want to do this again. And you get to the point where you start thinking, well, everybody out there is just a jerk. They're all like that, because that's what you're attracting and attracted to. You're repeating those patterns. Or, men start thinking all women are demanding and unloving and uncaring and all these kinds of things. But no, it's in you. It's who you are attracting and attracted to because of the pathways in your brain. So when we do that timeline therapy that we talked about, we literally build new pathways. And it happens instantly, but the original pathway will say, for instance, if we'll say a young woman her dad was overly controlling and abusive and negative and critical, and this happens to boys too. So let's say it's for boys too. When he's young, his dad is overly controlling and critical, and has unrealistic expectations of how his son should be, all these kinds of things. So you're carrying all of that with you. And you have experienced that over and over again. Every time your dad says negative, hostile things to you, that's where you go, is on that pathway. So you got a 5-lane highway that is about being disrespected and abused and ignored and all those things. And now we're going to do timeline therapy. We're going to release you from that, but it's the familiar one. And we're going to start creating a new pathway. And it's like this cute little dirt path. And so you want to then practice and have some support to keep choosing to go to that dirt path until now we add some gravel to it. And now it's getting a little wider, and maybe we pave it with a little asphalt. And eventually that becomes the path that you automatically go to. Initially, you're choosing that new path. So you're choosing. I mean, I literally, you mentioned the manimals, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, but there's lots of different types of men. And so for a woman, she has a pattern of re-attracting the same kind of abusive, over-controlling man that her father was, for example. And now what she really wants is the guys that interest her are the academics, the lawyers, the doctors, the professors, and the computer nerds. These are all guys who live in their head. So that's what she's attracted to. And a lot of women are attracted to that. And she can now literally recognize, because I help teach how to recognize the different types of men. She can recognize not just unconsciously, energetically, the overly controlling and critical and abusive types. She can consciously recognize them. And she can now make a choice. Oh, I do not want that. I can consciously see that's not what I want. I want this other type of guy. And she can make a choice, and she's building that path to get stronger and stronger. So it becomes the familiar automatic path for her to take. I see you nodding your head. So ask me any questions about that. Was I unclear? Was that clear? Does it sound like hocus pocus? Does it sound like woo-woo stuff? It works. It's true.
Oh yeah, definitely. I believe it too because it's hilarious. It's like same problem, a different face sometimes. Where it's like, crap. I thought this mirror. Well, I thought I escaped it. It's so mean, but it's like, there's some missed shoes. There's some baggage I didn't drop. I didn't leave it at the luggage store, and just
That's
had to
right.
let it go. It's like they didn't listen to the good old Disney Frozen song enough. It's like they still holding on to all the snowmen and all the snow village. That's right, indeed. That's
Yes.
right, indeed. Well,
And
speaking of, oh, go
I
ahead.
just want to add to what you're saying. And we don't do it consciously. Consciously, we're saying, I'm not hanging on to those snowmen anymore. I don't want that anymore. That's what we're doing consciously. But 90%, over 90% of our decisions, our choices, our behaviors are based on our unconscious. And when your conscious is saying, I want this, and your unconscious is saying, oh, no, we're going with whatever's familiar, your unconscious always wins. So we need to become aware of what's in the unconscious. So what the heck is going on in there that keeps blocking me from what I want? We need to become aware of that, release that, so that our unconscious now is favoring the new path, and we are aligned with what our conscious wants. Now we can move forward without self-sabotage constantly.
Woohoo! That's right, indeed. 'Cause self-sabotage is evil. That's right, indeed. Even though it comes from within.
I know, it's so unfair.
It's like cut the blue wire. They're all blue wires.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh man. Well, speaking of wire, I hear you got your own metaphorical zoo going on, which makes you different from any other relationship coach out there, which your fabulous book, if I'm not mistaken, about gorillas making great lovers. So why gorillas? Like, is it because of gorilla glue sticking to you forever? Like, what? Why gorillas? Why not a random dolphin or maybe a random dragon?
Good question. And if I had chosen gorillas, if it was a conscious decision, then I would be able to give you all kinds of logical reasons for how I came up with that. But it wasn't conscious. And now I am very spiritual. I'm also religious. I'm also extremely open-minded. And I am willing to receive inspiration. And when I was thinking, how am I going to describe these men, this type of man, how am I going to describe it to women so that they'll understand? So I'll just give you a little longer story, if I may. So I had a girlfriend who'd been married and divorced after a while, and very attractive. And she was dating a lot. And she came to me and she said, I'm just not finding any of the good guys. I keep finding these jerks. So, all right, now we know she has a pattern. But I said, I'll help you. And so this was a long time ago, back when people were still smoking, and back when they had what used to be called singles bars. And so the two of us went out to this singles bar, and we're in there in this dim lit, smoky room. And I said, look around and tell me, who are you attracted to? Let's see if I can figure out your pattern. So she looks around, she points to this guy about 20 feet away, and she said, that guy over there. And I look at him and I literally jerk backwards and said, but I can see he's trouble from here. And she leans forward and she's peering through the smoke and she goes, what do you see? And in that moment, I realized that many people cannot see what I see. Maybe because I grew up with so much psychology, I learned to look below the surface a long time ago. But I started trying to describe to her, well, when you want to find a healthy, good man, what you want to look for is he needs to be comfortable in his own skin, and people around him are also comfortable. They don't feel, criticized or competitive or that kind of stuff. And you want to look for, and I started realizing, oh my goodness, I'm describing my dad. Now, I'm really lucky. I'm blessed with a really good dad. But which gives me a head up. That's unfair advantage. And at the same time, I saw a gorilla walking through the jungle. And I didn't know anything about gorillas other than Jane Goodall. That's all I knew about gorillas. And I said, well, kind of like a gorilla. And I've come to find out since then, this was a really smart choice to choose as my description of a family man. Gorillas, male gorillas, are very family oriented. They are not the chest beating, fearful thing that we see in the movies, unless they are needing to defend their family, protect their family. They are actually more family oriented than anything else. They're gentle. They've been known to take over the care of baby gorillas. If the mother gets hurt or dies or whatever, the dads will take care of them. And one other thing, which I find quite interesting, is, as far as I know, gorillas are the only, maybe there might be another, but I don't know about, another animal or manimal or whatever animal out there that sometimes has face-to-face sex. And in fact, if you type in gorilla love, you get gorilla porn on your computer, because people are fascinated at the zoos and take videos of these gorillas. So when I say gorillas make great lovers, I'm not kidding. In the gorilla world, the women, or the females, are free to leave their harem, their family group, anytime they want to, if they feel that the male is not taking good care of them, isn't leading them to good, they forage and move all the time, leading them to good places to find food, finding them safe places where they can bed down and nest at night. I mean, the male gorillas are the protector providers of the world. They take care of their family. And so if he's not doing a good job, she'll go find another one. And that's considered okay. So they really work, the male gorillas, to keep their family happy. They're very family oriented. So it's a perfect description as a choice to describe different types of men. And what's interesting to me is, if I say to women, she's trying to learn a new pattern, she's trying to break her old pattern of choosing abusive men, we'll say, and she wants a new pattern, she wants to find a different kind of guy. And if I say to her, well, go out and look for guys like Matt Damon, who I happen to think is a gorilla, go out and look for guys. She'll go out and look for guys that look like Matt Damon. But if I instead I say, so go out and look for a gorilla, and these are the qualities that he'll have. And then I describe he's going to be easygoing, he's low stress, he's comfortable in his own skin, he's a provider, protector, he's all. Now she can go and look for those qualities and recognize it in different men. And that expanded to the 12 types of men that we have given animal names, not to make fun of them, but just for fun. Animal names, each of the 12 types that are in my jungle. And each of the types is based on what motivates them, what drives them, what makes them feel good about themselves. Which might lead you to ask me, so Angeline is your husband of 30 years that you're happy with. Is he a gorilla? No. He isn't primarily a gorilla. He is what I call a panther. And the panthers are the artists of the world. They express themselves artistically, and they're oftentimes very easy to recognize by the way they dress, because they don't want to dress like everybody else and just blend in and like everybody else. They're not the guys in the khaki pants and polo shirts. Those are not the panthers of the world. They're going to choose different things. Oftentimes it'll be a hat, or it's Johnny Depp is a major panther. The man looks like he's in a costume, no matter when he's not in a movie. I have numerous different pictures of him, and he's wearing always more accessories than I wear. He's expressing himself artistically. So each of the 12 types is different based on what is it that motivates them, what drives them. So my husband is primarily a panther. He's an artist. He made his living restoring classic cars for high-end clients, because that's the only people who can afford to have cars restored. And the cars that he restored for his clients won national awards because he's an artist. That's what he's like. And have you ever taken the quiz? And so we have a free quiz that anybody can take about any woman can take the gorilla quiz about a man that she knows and discover his manimal type. And then the men wanted their own quiz, so we have the guys gorilla quiz, which I'm pretty sure that I should have looked up to see what your results were. Do you happen to remember by any chance when you took the quiz?
Yeah, apparently I was a shark-headed panda.
A shark and a panda. Okay, so let me explain to everybody what that means. So shark would be a name, an animal name that many people are already familiar with in the business world. This is a man who's focused on financial success. So you have your podcast, which I'm assuming is financially successful. Maybe you have some other things going on in your life also that are financially oriented. So that would be shark. And panda, what an interesting combination for you. Pandas are the ones who are playful. In fact, we named them after Jack Black in the panda role that he does. So pandas are into fun and friends. They're the ones, they get invited to parties because they're so fun. They like to play pranks. To use a movie star example, Robert Downey Jr. is known for playing pranks on movie sets. He is a playful guy. So great combination you've got going there. So money and play. That's a good one. Ladies, be aware. I don't know if you're single or not. But if you want to look for a new type, this might be the type you want.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I hear you can almost scout the type of different animal a guy is if you're around him for a few minutes or so.
Yeah, well, the thing of it is when you get used to this system, when you really pay attention to it, you start realizing it is visible. The different types are visible. If you think about it for a second, the rhinos are into health and fitness. And so on the extreme end, they're the gym rats. So they're the ones that are working out, and hopefully they're not taking steroids, but anyway, they're working out, and their body is their work of art. They're really into that. So it's really easy, super easy to see in a room full of 12 men, we'll say, which ones have been working out. You can see it, it's visible, especially compared to the owls, who are the guys living in their head, which is the doctors, the lawyers, the professors, and the computer geeks. Well, you can have a mix, somebody, because every man has a mix. So you could have a mix of a guy who actually works out and is a doctor. This could happen. But in general, you're going to see the doctors, they look different, they dress different, they stand differently than the rhinos do. They also look, stand, and act differently than the playful pandas. And so when you get to, well, I used to take women before the pandemic. So women that had worked on my, through my program that I'd done some coaching with, and they knew the system, we would go on what we would call safari. And so I'd take 3 or 4 of these women and we'd go out for lunch. And we'd go to the local mall before the pandemic and go into whatever lunch place there is there. And then I'd say to them, look around the room, ladies, and let's talk about this guy across over here. He's with some woman, and tell me, which of the animal types do you think he is? And so they discuss with each other. Well, I think he's a this because of this, and I think he's that, and everything. And we'd pick out a couple others and I'd say, okay, how about this one over here? What do y'all think this one is? And how about that one? And so after we'd identified a few and what we had decided what type he probably was just by looking at them, I would get up and leave the table and I'd go over to table number 1 and I'd say to the lady at the table, my girlfriends and I are here today and we're talking about different kinds of men. I would love to ask your man some questions. Would that be okay with you? And she'll go, okay. And then I'd say to him, so would you mind? Could I ask you some questions? And he'll usually, they like the attention. Sure. And so with about 3 questions, I can identify which type he is. And I do that with all 3 of the tables. We were 100% correct. Done this over and over again. I can walk into a coffee shop and identify people when I'm speaking in front of a group and there's an audience out there. I will oftentimes deliberately on purpose, I'll point into the audience and I'll say, okay, so of the 12 different types, you, sir, down there in the 2nd row, I can see from here you are owl. And the guy right behind you, obviously rhino. And this gentleman over here on the left, I'm gonna say this one is wolf. Oh yeah, wolf, yeah. So definitely wolf there. And then I'll say to them, and of course you can take our free quiz and determine for yourself which animal type you are. And ladies, if you want to know, you can take the quiz too. But it's visible. Usually the primary type, their basic nature, because everybody's a mix, but their basic nature shows. You'll see it in the way they hold their body. You'll see it in the way they dress. You'll see it in the way they behave. Oh, the wolves are fun to watch. But well, they are. But it enables women, when they learn this system, to be more conscious rather than unconscious, more conscious about choosing what they want to look for, what they want to find.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So after, I guess, putting all 12 together, I know I can speak today. Anyways, after putting all 12 animals together in this wonderful system, have you discovered any new animals by any chance? Because I know it just started off as a single gorilla before it branched out into a zoo.
It branched out into zoo. Well, I haven't mentioned 2 types. I haven't discovered any new ones. I haven't discovered any that are missing. Somebody asked me one time, well, what about the guys who are focused on being famous? Well, usually there's something to do with that, and their basic nature is one of the manimals. So I haven't found any that I'm missing, but there are 2 types that we haven't talked about that women want to avoid. And men, when you take the guy's gorilla quiz, if you find out that you have a large percentage, which would be like over 5 points of rat or crab, that's what you want to avoid. And the interesting thing is that rat and crab aren't actually real manimal types. What they are is defense mechanisms. And so, for instance, Um, the crab is focused on criticism. And bless their heart, they just can't keep themselves for saying negative things. For instance, if you're dating a crab and you ask him, well, how do you think this dress makes me look? And he'll say, well, you look fat in it. And if you challenge him and say, well, couldn't you say that a little nicer? Well, I'm just being honest with you. And they have, no shame for the fact that they're being critical, that they could be diplomatic in better ways. But it's done deliberately, unconsciously for them, of course, but it's done deliberately to create distance. At some point when they were young, they felt vulnerable, maybe because they had parents who were very critical. And in that family, maybe everybody shot little darts at each other all the time. And he learned to, and women do it too, some, but this is mostly about men. He learned to defend and protect and armor himself by pushing people away through criticism. It's a self-defense mechanism. And underneath that crusty, critical, prickly, armored exterior is the true manimal. Now, I'm allowed to share this because I have permission. My son-in-law, one of my sons-in-law, was decidedly a crab, and I recommended to my daughter not to marry him because he was so critical and abrasive, and she's so sweet and compliant. And I thought this was a really bad idea. And she said, well, I prayed about it, and this is who I want to marry. And I said, okay, well, then in that case, we're going to support you. We'll do everything we can to make it work. Well, over the years, by the way, he agreed that he had a problem with criticism before they got married, and he made a commitment before they got married that he would work on it. But in most cases, that work on it kind of goes by the wayside pretty soon. Well, that wasn't the case with my son-in-law. He continued to work on it. And they got married 6 months after Dixon and I did. And so they have an almost 30-year marriage. And talk about come a long way, baby. Oh, my word. Underneath his crabby, critical, judgmental exterior is a fun-loving panda, which is exactly what my sweet, compliant, overly serious daughter needed. They are a great couple, and he's really worked on it. So it can happen. And I wrote about, and with their permission, wrote about them in my book. And my daughter asked me to write about them in our book. She said, Mom, I want you to give other women hope. Now, the other type, rat, that you want to avoid is more difficult to deal with. Because the rats, again, as a young boy, he received too much blame and too much criticism. And the way he dealt with it, that the pattern that he learned to protect himself was to blame somebody else. If he gets a bad grade in school, well, it's so-and-so's fault. My teacher doesn't like me. She's biased in some way or another. It's always somebody else's fault. And this poor little kid, it's the only way that he learned to be able to protect himself. Well, the problem with that is then he hasn't learned to be accountable and acknowledge his faults, his weaknesses, his difficulties. And if you don't acknowledge they exist, how can you change them? And so when you're dealing with someone that has a lot of rat, it's really, really difficult, because for him to face that his loser results, his negative results, are based on his own behavior, that takes a lot of courage to face that. That's kind of awful. Well, consequently, the prisons are full of rats. And he didn't do it. And if he did do it, she made me. It's her fault. And it's really, really hard for someone to face that and change that. And so if you are in a relationship with someone who has a lot of rat, a lot of blame, and lack of accountability, unless they say that they're truly willing to work on it, and I don't mean that beat you up, come home drunk, beat you up, and the next day say, I'm so sorry, I won't do it again. That's not working on it. So unless they're actually willing to own up to that they've got a problem and they need to work on it and actually get involved in some kind of rehab program, you've got a long road home. So that's too, but no, to your question, I haven't discovered any others. The 12 seems to be a full stable.
Ah, there we go. That's right, the mighty disciples of love. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Have you ever seen a crat before? A crab rat? Is that like the ultimate fusion of danger to escape from that she had to tell one of
Oh,
your clients to run away from?
the ultimate difficult would be a crab rat pit bull mix,
Oh,
because the pit bulls are just like the pit bull dog. A person who owns a pit bull dog will tell you they are the most loyal, loving, supportive, protective dog. They're absolutely wonderful. And other people will tell you pit bulls are the most dangerous, evil, vicious dogs out there. So of all the different manimal types, the pit bull has the most range of emotionally mature to emotionally very immature. And when they're immature, the pit bull, who is drawn toward leadership and control. So if he's immature, it's about control. He believes he's showing love when he's telling you how you should live, when he's telling you what you should wear, when he's telling you shouldn't have those friends that you have. No, you come and do what I tell you to do. He believes that's love because he believes he owns you. And there are cultures in which men grow up being taught that women are possessions. And they believe it. And we're seeing now some fight back from some of the women that are saying, I don't like that. I want to own myself. Thank you very much. On the other side, and emotionally mature, and by the way, there is a free quiz for that too, to determine the emotional maturity of any man. And women can take it about themselves too. But on the other side, an emotionally mature pit bull can be a great leader. He wants to run things and handle them well, but he has the ability to listen to his followers, listen to his wife, listen to his employees. He has empathy, which is an example of the opposite of being a sociopath. Sociopaths don't have empathy. But so he has empathy, and because he listens, he becomes a great leader who's looking for ways to fulfill what his employees, maybe he's a politician, his constituents, what they actually want. He's looking for a way to help provide it, not just pat his own wall full of trophies and pictures with leaders kind of thing. And so an emotionally mature pit bull can be a great spouse or business leader.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's right. Make sure you make a run for it. If you see a pit crab, that's right indeed. A pit bull with a rat head and a crab shell. That's right indeed. All four of them legs. That's right indeed. It's scary. That's right indeed. It's scary. That's right indeed. You think it's
Yeah,
probably one
run
of
for
the
your life.
X-Men. That's right indeed. Make sure it doesn't have teeth. Or it's game
Yeah,
over.
maybe they can make a movie about my book, and they can have a horror film and have a pit crab in it.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Hopefully the rat doesn't snitch about all the goodies before the movie comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hope.
So my goodness, so since you've been on quite a few interviews sharing the good work that you're doing, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
Well, actually, I think that we have way too many people who are willing to settle. They don't know how to get a better relationship. Maybe the examples that they've seen of their parents, aunts and uncles and neighbors and stuff. I mean, we've got a 50% or better divorce rate, and the group that is not divorced, a lot of them are in pain and suffering, and they're not happy. They don't have a good relationship. So sometimes we start out in a relationship and we have, high hopes. And when it doesn't work, and we run into problems and challenges, which guaranteed every relationship will, we think, well, maybe that's the way it just always goes. And we settle. And actually, when you come up against the problems, majority of problems that are the normal things, not somebody who's a real serious rat, but when you run up against those challenges, that's actually the point of opportunity. When if you'll look at yourself, get yourself a good coach like me, of course, and then you have the opportunity to break through that ceiling of settling. And actually, the relationships get better when you actually do the growth and move past the discouraged, challenging places. Sometimes people, when I'm on these different shows, they ask me, what would my one bit of advice be? Well, so I have two. One is when you come up against this tough stuff, look for some help, look for some ways to, and it's not going to be about the other person, it's going to be about yourself. How can you grow? How can you change? How can you learn? How can you release some of that baggage? What can you do to be able to build and strengthen and become a more lovable person? And the second thing that I would say is when you run into those challenges, those difficulties, get curious about your partner rather than critical. Ask yourself, why would they act like this? What need is it fulfilling for them to behave this way? And get curious, not judgmental and not critical and not trying to find fault with them, but instead look for ways to understand what's going on with them. Meantime, read my book, take the quizzes, sign up for some of my programs. I have a lot of programs to help you. My goal truly, having had a first marriage that didn't work, I know how unhappy you can be, what a tragic waste, all those marriages that are ending in divorce, and even worse, those that are staying for the sake of the kids, which means the kids are living in a home that's got conflict all the time. What a tragedy, when we could all be much happier, when we could actually fulfill that drive that we have for companionship, for someone to bond with. That's my goal, is to help more people have that happier, fulfilling relationship.
Me lucky indeed, me lucky indeed. And funny enough, this book is actually a product of a fulfilling relationship indeed. So how's the process like being a co-author with your current husband to put this book together? I'm pretty sure there have been some things you had to fight to probably keep, or some things you had to fight with on what to take out. Like, how was that process like?
Well, that's interesting. We work together. We are truly a team. He and I are very different. We have a fun little skit that we do on our homepage of our website. Our website, by the way, is relationshipmaster.com. And in that little skit, it shows how different we are. I mean, we're really different with very different backgrounds. And we've come to believe, as we've learned to grow and understand each other, that that's a real blessing, because we each bring something additional that enriches the relationship. I mean, right this moment, earlier today, we were working on a script for a 5-day masterclass that we're putting together. And we sit down together and we go over it. And he says, well, I think we need to add this here. And I say, well, how about this there? Well, how about, maybe these words sound a little better. I tend to be real straightforward, more pragmatic, more linear. And he, being that artist that he is, he's much more lyrical. He is more emotion-centered in the kinds of words and phrases that he chooses. We feel like that with the two of us working on it, that it's decidedly better than either one of us. We're both excellent writers. We've written articles for magazines and stuff, but together we feel like that what we can create and produce is better. It's richer, it's clearer, it's easier to understand. It's good.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. Well, speaking of good, I'm sure there's good food indeed. So if your magical book, Gorillas Make Great Lovers, if it were a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, chocolate for sure. It's rich, it's dark. My book is black on the cover with a heart, a pink heart in the front. And people told me, you can't do a black book for
Ah,
romance, for love. You can't do that. And I said, well, I happen to think black is sexy. I happen to think the combination of black and gold that I have got is really classy. I mean, I think Chanel did the same thing, black and gold. So this is the way that I like it. So if my book were a food, it would definitely be chocolate, and I think chocolate cupcakes, maybe with pink frosting.
Someone thought about that question ahead of time. She was ready, y'all.
No, I didn't know that question. It's the first time I've ever been asked that, but you can see behind me, if it's visual. These are my brand colors: black, white, and gold with pink accents. And when you come to my website, you'll see the same thing. And I wear black really often and gold. These are my brand colors. The wall behind me is black. I think it's sexy.
Second that. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Black is great for you. That's right indeed. Silly people saying you can't have a black book. They obviously haven't been in the library.
Well, well, my publisher told me that the title was terrible. Gorillas Make Great Lovers. She said they're going to think that you're going to take a trip to the jungle with Jane Goodall or whatever. And again, like seeing that gorilla walking through the jungle, I feel I was inspired with that title. And I'm very glad I stuck with it. And as soon as somebody understands the manimal system, the title makes total sense to them.
Heck yeah, indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Because Peter didn't come for her yet because they know what's up. That's right indeed. They know what's up indeed. That's right indeed. Because they love the book. All the puns intended.
So, and just to be really clear, the first chapter is about the manimals. The rest of the book is all about how to improve your relationships. It's got chapters on how to manage boundaries, on how to some communication skills, how to build trust, what to do after infidelity, applications, lots of cute stories, real stories, which I have permission from people to be able to put in there. But it's easy and fun to read. Some people have told me they couldn't put it down. They read it in one night, and then they go back and start underlining different things and making notes about what they want to put to work. But it's a fun, easy read, but it's got real, true, actual concepts and principles to be able to help your relationships improve. And by the way, that once you learn these kinds of principles, they're basic principles. They work not only in intimate relationships, but they work with being a better manager or a better employee, with being a better neighbor, mostly with being happier with yourself.
That's right indeed. Definitely got to be happier with yourself. That's where you can have even higher levels of happiness if someone joins you for the fun. That's right
Yes,
indeed. That's right indeed. Let them join you on the fun ride. That's already fun. Don't try to seek
yes.
them for the fun because hey, it may not end up on a bun. It might just be fun without a bun, and that won't be fun.
Fun is good for us all. We are way too dang serious and worried as a society. And we need a lot more fun, a lot more laughter, a lot more joy, a lot more play.
Heck yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. So, my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Go and find my husband and marry him. Oh my goodness, we talk about, because we met in our 40s. Oh my goodness, if we had met way back in our 20s, woo, the life we could have had. Yeah, I would go find him.
Fun thing is, folks don't even think too deep about that question because the thing is, if that were to happen, he'd basically be a cradle robber. You'd be 25 and he'd be his current age.
Oh my goodness. Well, well, he'd be happy to see me. And I think he's a darn good catch. So I'd probably take him anyway. When I was single, in between marriages, that 4 years that I was a single mom with 3 kids, I had one car. It was a Corvette. And this is before they had really strict laws about seatbelts. And all three of the kids and I would crowd into that car, and we loved that car. And it had T-tops. We'd take the T-tops off. It had a CD player in it, and we had a series of CDs that we would play. Definitely the music from, oh my goodness, what is the name of that movie? It's a detective show about a guy from Chicago who goes out to LA. And I can't think of the name of it right now, but it has great music and great songs on it. And the Pointer Sisters and the Beach Boys. And we would just down the road. I never got a speeding ticket because I didn't speed in that car. And the license plate said fun for the numeral, fun for her, which it was lots of fun for me and my kids. And we just had a great time as a family, as a single mom with my kids. We played a lot. We just really enjoyed life together. It just, and when you say, if I could go back and be 25, I felt 25 at that point. In fact, I probably, if anything, was really hitting my 25s then, because when I first married, I was 21 when I married the first time. And I think I was way too serious. I didn't do a good job of choosing a partner. My mother mostly chose him for me. But when I was in my 40s and feeling 25, and then met my husband, and we chose each other, and that's a strange story too. I don't even need to go into that, but that's truly, we are, go to my website, relationshipmaster.com, and scroll down. It's on the homepage. Scroll down to a little video of the two of us, and we'll tell you the story about how we met and how different we are and what an unusual couple we are. It's fun.
Woohoo! Fun on the bun and fun for her and him, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, heard that right, folks. Head over to relationshipmaster.com. Take that quiz. Find out what type of animal you are. That's right, indeed. If you got the couple swag going on, have your lady take it too, or vice versa, I guess, in this case, maybe. Since we got multiple options out there nowadays.
That's
So
right.
that we can
That's
find
right.
out what animal you are in the magical love jungle.
And unfortunately, it is a jungle with most of us trying to figure out where's our path. How do I get through this? How do I manage it? And there's just, and unfortunately, there's a lot of really crummy advice out there. And the worst and the crummiest advice is in the movies. And the movies would lead you to believe that if your man loves you, he can read your mind. And so when he says, "What's the matter, honey?" and you say, "Nothing," you think he's supposed to read your mind, and that's going to be true love. Well, I'm sorry, but true love is willing to sit down and have an honest and diplomatic conversation about what you're actually feeling and thinking. That's true love. So there's just a lot of, and then there's books about the rules. Oh, for goodness sakes, talk about playing games. When he rings the doorbell, don't answer right away, because then he might think you're anxious or something. So you got to make him wait. And stop playing games. Be real. Be your real self, and look for someone else who's being real. And then you can have a real relationship instead of the illusion of something, and that you'll both get discouraged with after a while because neither one of you is real. No, be real. Be authentic. Read Brene Brown. She writes great books about being authentic.
Heck yeah, indeed. Definitely be authentic, folks. Folks want the real leather. They don't want that pleather. That's right, indeed. We want the genuine leather around here, the genuine article. Indeed, indeed. So, my goodness, for those who need to genuinely get in contact with you, is there anything else you need, folks, to remember, how, in addition to your website, if they want to get in touch with you?
Remember that I really do want to help you. I want you to be happy. I'll be happier when you're happier.
Oh, sweet. Well, you love to hear great words like that from the angelic Angeline herself. That's right, indeed. You probably only got maybe 15% of her knowledge, indeed. So if you want to dive in to the other possible 85%, which will probably take a whole freaking lifetime, head over to a wonderful website. We're going to put a link to that in the show notes, as well as a link to her marvelous book that she co-wrote with her wonderful husband and lover, indeed. So that way you can catch all the goodness. That's right, indeed. So that way, if you're on the prowl or you're in already been proud already and you're looking to amplify a relationship, she's got you covered like a blanket. Maybe three, a whole triangle, a whole metaphorical Bermuda Triangle of covering. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Although you won't have to go through the Bermuda Triangle, hopefully, to get to a better relationship. Because you usually don't make it out alive.
Oh, goodness.
But before folks make it out the Bermuda Triangle, end up in a rabbit hole. Any parting words before we close up shop, Angeline?
Go for what you really want. I'm sure on some level you have a dream, a vision of who you would like to become, the person you would like to be, and the way you'd like to live your life. Really take a look at that and say, okay, if this is what I'm wanting and this is what my heart yearns for is this, and how does that compare to what I have? And then say, okay, what steps can I take? And they may be little steps, that's okay. Move toward your dream. Really, truly, go for what you want. I think Oprah says, live your best life. Do it. It's important. I believe that the more that you are your authentic self and fulfilling your dream, you are a blessing to the world. Everybody has a message to share. And if you can just be your true self, be true to yourself, your happy, joyous, fulfilled self, you're a blessing to the world and you'll be a happier person.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.